Hi friends, welcome back to my channel if you're new here. My name is Tori and today we are setting up my bullet journal for the month of January. So my theme this month is going to be fireworks. This is my little kind of test run that I did. And I'm going to be using some colors from Pink Fresh Studio, Cherry Blossom, Misty Coast, and Ocean Breeze. And what my plan was for this, because I did look up some fireworks themes online and I didn't really find anything that resonated with me. So, what I decided to do was use my Cricut and some mylar that I had on hand to find some firework bursts, if you will, that I really liked and cut them out on my Cricut to use as a stencil, which is why I will be bringing out some colorful inks from Pink Fresh Studio. So I also pulled out some blending brushes that I don't actually end up using too much just because the fireworks themselves, the details in this stencil are fairly close together. So I ended up having better luck getting everything where I wanted it to be using the little finger daubers that I have up the top of my screen. So about halfway through doing this very first stencil, I will set aside my blending brush and just stick primarily to the finger daubers. I found that I got a much better ink distribution using those. Probably because these are mini ink cubes and not full ink pads. So I wasn't getting as much ink on those blending brushes as I probably should have in order to do this. I also didn't really want to mask off most of my page, and I found that using the ink daubers instead of the brush made it so that I didn't really have to do as much masking as if I would have used that brush for the entire setup. So I cut out two different stencils with my Cricut. I cut out this one that I'm using right now primarily to do a cover page layout. I will use it one other time in this setup where I'm just filling in a big space, but this was supposed to be, or is really, the primary fireburst and focus of this particular page because all that this page is going to do is say January. Not even the full word either. It's just going to say Jan, technically. So I really wanted to have an elaborate firework burst on this page. It was feeling a little bit empty when I initially got to this point. I was thinking that I would only have just this one on this page, but I am going to end up adding several more just to make the page feel a little bit more full. The fireworks that I found in Cricut Access, they all had stars included in them, but if you watched my yearly collection setup, I did chat a little bit in that video about how I'm obsessed with these hand-drawn stars. So I actually removed all of the stars from the design space file and just hand drew any stars in. Also, people are putting off fireworks like crazy. So if you hear any of those in the background, that is what that noise is. It is July 1st right now. Happy New Year. So yes, people are going wild outside with the fireworks. Here's where I start adding in some extra little firework bursts. I am using pink and blue, those colors primarily through most of this setup. I also brought in that Misty Coast color. I chose that gray because it did actually match the N89 Tombow that I plan to use quite well. So I wanted to have that kind of in my color scheme as well, just to kind of match those two colors together. And then I had initially tried to cut out 3 stencils, and I was going to do kind of a layering stencil technique, if you will. But the second longer stencil that's like this one didn't cut out properly, so I just kind of scrapped it. And what I decided to do was just turn the fireworks that I have in this particular stencil to the sideways, or, just turn it around until I could fit some little extra bursts in here and there. So adding those additional fireworks to this cover page definitely helped, but I was still feeling like it was missing something. So I'm going to pull out another one of my Pigma Microns, this one in 005. The other one was in 01. I don't know if I said that or not, but it was. And I'm going to use the stencil that I created to just add some dashed lines around each of the little firework bursts periodically throughout the page. And to be quite honest with you, I am so glad that I decided to do this. This, I think, dotted or dashed line around some of these firework bursts really made this feel like it was more fitting to my personal style, I felt like. And I was glad that I chose to do it because it ended up amplifying how much I liked these spreads. Off camera, I will add a couple more fireworks to the left-hand page, just to kind of bring that design over there as well a little bit. And if you want to see what that looks like, definitely go head over to my Instagram account because I do have a finished photo over there. Moving along, we are working on my calendar page right now, and I am just drawing out all of my calendar boxes. I am doing a kind of curved corner box, but these are all solid lines. And I'm going to be using the corner of this Archer and Olive ruler slash stencil to make the outside lines or corners curved. I really like these rulers specifically. One of the main reasons is because of this little curved edge on the corners. And I like using it to trace and make like a perfect curved corner. I did mess up in a couple spots. So what I will do to make that look a little bit more intentional is I'm going to do a wavy, wonky line all around the outside of my calendar. I personally was experiencing like very, very shaky hands as I was doing this setup today, probably because I woke up with a migraine. And usually I find that when I have migraines, I become just overwhelmingly shaky throughout the rest of the day. And that's what was happening to me today. So I stuck mostly with things that would make my lines as straight as possible throughout the setup. So I'm going to end up using washi tape for some of my highlights. I'm also going to use my ruler to draw lines and stuff like that because I did not want my curvy, like wonky lines to be like overwhelmingly shaky and mess up what I am working on. I am just getting the dates added into my calendar. And then once I've got that done, I will turn my page to the side and I am going to go ahead and add some washi tape down because I am going to use this pink marker from Ohuhu. This is the color 114. I can't remember the actual color name, but the number is 114. This is the same pink that I used in my yearly collections journal setup. I did mention in that journal setup how much I really liked this color. So I'm using that again, and I'm just going to use that to create the header portion of my page. I'm just highlighting one row and then outlining that row with my washi tape so that it is a perfectly straight line all the way across. And then I will use my Tombow Funonosuke brush pen, and I'm going to hand letter out this month. I always call my calendar page this month because it feels a little too repetitive to me to have the name of the month when I just did a cover page to kind of separate and highlight what month we're in. So I usually just call my calendar page this month, and then that's really, really all I need to title this particular page. I am pulling out that stencil again, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did on that cover page where I am just picking some colors and stenciling in some fireworks throughout the page. I will also use the stencil as my kind of stencil to make those dashed lines on some of these fireworks. And then I will also kind of alternate the colors throughout as well. For this particular one, I didn't even pick my stencil up before I decided to add the dashed lines. I found it was much easier to just add them after the first go of stenciling before I start moving things around and add those extra bursts in to make the fireworks look a little bit more full. So that's what I'm doing here, is just going straight in to do some of those dashed lines. And then I will move my actual stencil around and try and just get some extra bursts into each firework. Since I am using these stencils for both ink blending and to stencil out lines, I got quite a bit of micron ink on the actual stencil when I was doing out my dashed lines. So I just pulled out a little bottle of rubbing alcohol that I keep on my craft desk and sprayed that onto a piece of paper towel because I find that the easiest and quickest way to clean off ink from a stencil, and I learned this from card making, is to just spray a little bit of rubbing alcohol off. It comes off quite almost instantly, and then rubbing alcohol also dries super, super quick. So you can go right into stenciling with a different color if you need to. Throughout this setup, I didn't really clean off my stencil too much, maybe twice, and probably one of them wasn't even on camera. The two colors that I chose were pink and blue, and if those had mixed together, it would have given me a little bit of a purpley, like a muted purpley color, and gray. And I wasn't too super worried about anything getting super mixed up because I figured that I would just end up liking the way that it looks anyways. So I was perfectly fine with that. But if you wanted to, you could absolutely clean off your stencil between each particular color that you're using to keep everything a little bit more separate. I thought I was done at that point with my fireworks, so I went ahead and moved on to highlighting the number rows of my calendar, and I'm just using the N89 Tombow brush pen in order to highlight that. This is my favorite brush marker color. And I feel like I talk about it all the time, but it is my favorite, so I'm just using that to highlight every other row. And then I'm flipping back and forth between this page and my cover page because I just felt like I needed a little bit more on here. So I'm going to decide to add two more bursts of fireworks. One's going to be right at the bottom of my calendar that I'm doing right now. And then I will add another one to the little section that's open under where my title is, where it says this month. So I will get that one filled in there as well. And then add some additional stars and sparkles throughout the spread. And then I really feel like that makes everything a little bit more full and complete. I do choose, I believe, a couple of extra colors to add. So I'm going to flip to a different firework stencil portion to put a smaller firework as the secondary lines for this one, and I just used blue for that. And then I will pull that stencil back in and add some dashed lines, and then I will add in just my doodles and stars to finish this page off before we move on to the next one. For my overall planning and sketching out of this setup, I really only sketched out this calendar page and then kind of wrote on some of the other pages what I was going to be placing there. But for the most part, the only actual sketching I did was on this particular page, just to make sure that I had all of my months and numbers and days and all that good stuff in the right place. So overall, this setup was significantly quicker if I take into consideration how much time I spent planning it and how much time it actually took me to set everything up. It probably took maybe like 30 minutes to maneuver and kind of add all of the stuff to the stencils that I made and actually make said stencils. And most of that time was just my Cricut's cutting time. So that time really wasn't me doing anything. So, like I said, it was fairly quick. I believe when I finished recording, I had an hour and 18 minutes of footage. And most of that was me deciding what to do on the fly with the stencil after I kind of had everything ready to go. These next two pages that we will be working on are going to be my orders page and my currently's page. These are two pages that I did pretty much every month last year, and I am still loving them. On my orders page, I will track any orders that I place throughout the month of January, and then once the order ships, I place a little like check bubble next to the actual name of what I ordered. And sometimes I'll add like little descriptors to next to the things that I have coming in just for memory keeping purposes. And then once I receive the item, I will place a check in the little bubble that I've created. On my currently's page, I am tracking books that I currently read in the month of January, and then movies or TV shows that I watch, and games that I am playing. So when I took my final photos for these spreads, I did already fill in one book and one game on my currently's page because, like I said, it's January 1st, so I did start a new book today. And my husband got me the new Legend of Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom, I think is what it's called. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And I have been obsessed and playing that game pretty much nonstop since I opened it on Christmas morning. And I've been loving it. If you've played that game, let me know down in the comments below and what you think of it. I was considering doing a theme based on that game as well, just because some of the new characters in it are just so cute. So for my decoration for these two spreads, I am taking up most of my decoration on my orders page because I usually don't place too many orders. So I have a lot more usable space on that page than I do on my currently's page. So I basically placed my stencil at an angle and then colored each of my firework bursts in either in pink or blue, and I don't think that I used any of the gray on this one at all. And while I have those stencils down, I did the same thing where I'm going to then decide some random bursts to do a dashed border around and move right along. I didn't do any of the dashed borders around the really big burst of fireworks that I have, and I'm wondering if I should go back in and add a few there as well. I didn't even realize that I completely skipped that one. Let me know if you think that I should go in and add some dashes to that firework as well. It kind of feels like it's missing something without it when the rest of them do have it. So thankfully, this is a stencil that I now have probably forever. So I can just very easily place it back on the page and add some dashed lines. For my currently titles for the reading, watching, and playing, I'm just doing a very simple all caps font, and I will just write out those things. I had meant to do all of them one dot grid space in from where my line starts, but I definitely only did it on the reading, so I just placed a little heart in front of reading. And then the last thing that I will do on this page before we move along again is going to just be adding some more little tiny dots and sparkles throughout the actual fireworks. The last page that we will work on today is just going to be my habits page. Usually I do like a habits and then something else, either like a mood tracker or a weekly recap page. I think in November I tried to do like a gratitude page and that completely flopped, so I haven't done that again, but usually there's another page. But because I was experiencing so much shakiness and just overall like exhaustion from having a migraine today, I decided to just add in my habits. And if I need to add or want to add another page later on in the month when I'm feeling a little bit more up to it, I can absolutely do that. So I did go ahead and add in my title the same way I did on the last two pages. And I'm going to use these little mini month calendars that I printed out for my 2025 bullet journal setup. I'm going to use these in order to just place down some calendars for my habits. So I'm using this dot grid spacing ruler from Archer and Olive to kind of space out where I think these will fit best. Because again, I did not sketch most things out for this setup. And I did find a good kind of medium for how I wanted these calendars to be laid out. And I'm going to do 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom, and then just fill in the rest of the space with some more firework bursts. I will be tracking 5 habits again for this month. my long-acting medicine, my reading, not spending any money, coming into my bullet journal and actually utilizing my bullet journal. And then also what days that I am uploading videos I have on this little habit tracker as well. And then I will also use a dot marker from Ohuhu that matches this pink marker almost perfectly. I'm going to be using that dot marker and then just going in and placing a dot in the little boxes that I actually complete the habit or do the thing. Then the last thing that I will do on this page is just get those decorations added to the bottom. I started at an angle again, just like I did on the previous page. And this one, I think I'm alternating colors as I go through and add more bursts to each firework. So I'll have some that are blue and gray, some that are pink and gray, and then I will add in all of my stars and sparkles and all that goodness before we get into the final flip through. I will also highlight just the row right above each calendar because that's where I'm going to place the name of each of the habits that I will be tracking, and then I'll start adding in those extra little hand-drawn details. I realize about right here that I definitely didn't add any of those dashed lines to my fireworks, so I pulled back out my stencil, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of sprinkle in some of those dashed lines on sporadic firework lines as well, just to kind of have those in here. Again, I just really love the way that that looks, and it makes the fireworks, in my opinion, feel so much more complete. But that's going to be the last thing that I do before we move into the final flip through. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this setup in the comments below. This is definitely a setup that is a little bit unusual for me. I haven't done one like this before, but one of the best ways to keep myself, for me personally at least, into coming into my journal is by switching up the things that I'm doing when I'm actually setting my journal up, because then it brings me back into the journal, especially if I have a month before where I didn't really do much in my journal. Changing up the way that I'm setting it up will bring me back in and just kind of give me that excitement for the setup again. So here we are in my final flip through. Again, let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comments below. This was really fun for me. I really, really like the way that this setup turned out, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it below as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!